Là, quand l'animal là, ça allait plus fort, là, je tombais à dire leur chapelet, les femmes, et ça m'a pleuré. Et demandé au bon Dieu de nous sauver, pas le quitter se noyer. Et là, ça me plaît, j'ai envie de pleurer. Enfin, là, on a commencé à attendre les cris. Le monde qui passait, qui tapait se noyer, qui criait après leur papa, leur maman, de venir là-bas, qui allaient après se noyer. Et là, tous les femmes, quand ils leur a prié le bon Dieu, demandé au bon Dieu de ne pas nous quitter mourir. De nous quitter.
My great-grandfather was there at Caminada, and luckily survived. My grandfather was a baby, one of the few babies to survive, and they moved all the way up to Cutoff, Louisiana, but continued to be fishermen. But 7 out of my 8 great-grandparents were at Caminada on the coast. 3 out of my 4 grandparents grew up in Leeville, 12 miles from the coast. My mother was raised 22 miles from the coast, and my father 35 miles from the coast. So this community is here because we have retreated from the threats that can come from hurricanes and tidal issues. Yeah, we're in Cutoff, Louisiana, and the mausoleum at the Sacred Heart Church and the Sacred Heart Church of Côte Blanche, which was the original name of this area. Going through here is always relatives all over the place, but my grandfather, Pierre-Loup Curot, he was a baby at Caminada in 1893 when the hurricane hit. And the lowest percentage of people surviving the storm were babies. He was very fortunate to survive the storm. This house was one of the first houses built here at Côte Blanche after the hurricane of 1893. Nicolas Curot built him a new boat and a new house at Caminada in 1893. The reason this has not had flooding is because this house was built on the bank. It's built elevated. Even without the levee system, I think this house may never have flooded. But I guarantee you, without our levee system, this community would not have survived because the roadways would have been underwater a number of times just in the last few years. I'm the general manager of the South Fuchs Levee District. We're the local sponsor of a core project called the La Rosa Golden Meadow Hurricane Protection System. This system was authorized in 1965, same time the Lake Pontchartrain system was authorized, as a result of Hurricane Betsy. Our board members understand exactly what their job is. It's very simple, keep water out of people's homes and businesses. I think we're about the only system south of the Intercoastal that has not flooded for any of the storms, since 2000. And elevation is a salvation from inundation.
Hey.
How you doing?
I'm Donald Landash.
Wendell Curall from
Wendell Curall.
Cutoff, work for South Fuchs Levee District.
Eric Sanchez,
Eric
Bayou
Sanchez.
Lafourche Freshwater District.
Donald Landash, Eric. Glad to meet you.
Good meeting you. And you're the expert. You not only work here, you live here.
I live here, but I'm no expert.
Now, about how high is the water level right now in the bayou?
That's 8 feet elevation.
And then on the river, what's the height on the other side of the levee? How high is
30
it?
feet,
So, and we're standing on ground that's how high?
25 feet.
So basically what you're saying, if the levee wasn't here, the water level would be this high over the whole area.
That's what it would be.
When the levees do their work, the news people don't come out and take a picture of the guy mowing his lawn, all right, and say, look at the flood that didn't happen because the levee worked. But I'm saying the everyday person has no idea that that structure is the only thing that keeps them dry.
That's it.
They have no idea.
Especially if you're not from South Louisiana.
Yeah. But even over here, if this gave way, if this levee gave way, we would flood everything on the Lafourche Ridge, Assumption, Ascension. Why not the Terrebonne, Lafourche?
He wants to go back
And
where
you have
it came
flooding
from.
all the way. Yeah, it'll get to sea level, right?
Yeah.
When you grew up in South Louisiana, you know that the highland is near the waterway, near the bayou. So it was just a good setup where you built your house right on the bank of the bayou. And then you did some farming right behind there, and then you did a little cattling, and then you did your trapping and hunting on the last few arpents. And I thought that's what the world was like. After working with a couple of national organizations, and they would say, well, you want a flood. Look, you build right near the water. And I said, well, no, you idiot. The highlands near the water. And then I realized that in the rest of the United States, typically you have a waterway because everything drains to that spot. So the lowest land is right near the waterway, and the land tends to go up. And that's the beginning of all the issues and differences with what Washington thinks, sometimes what Baton Rouge thinks, and what's the reality on the ground in coastal Louisiana. I mean, that's a fundamental difference. You have to understand the geology of a delta to start to understand the problems and how to deal with the problems that we have. On Bayou Lafourche, at least in the southern part, we understand what risks we have dealt with. The Chanier storm, I want us to never forget the amount of loss of life and how you have to deal with the consequences if you don't deal with the risk. Well, Jerry, tell me, where are we right now?
We in Cutoff, Louisiana.
One of the largest alligator farms in the world. You ever thought this when you were 15, 16 years old?
No, I have a picture of myself when I was 14 holding an alligator just like this, soaking wet. And I don't remember where it was taken, but if somebody would have said, you're gonna be an alligator farmer one day and you're gonna live down the bayou, and I'm like, you are crazy. But here we are.
Alligators are off the endangered species list, and then we started the process of making farms, and that's when you got in on it.
I started in '89, been pretty successful, and we do all our business overseas in Europe. But
who are some of your customers?
you know, you got the Gucci's and the Hermeses and the Pradas and the Chanels and the Cartier group. And,
So some high-end people,
you know, yeah,
high-end companies.
all good products. And throughout Louisiana, all the farmers do the same thing.
The levee is the difference between you being able to operate and not operate. What would happen if the levee would fail or this would flood? What type of losses are you looking at?
Money-wise, in the millions of dollars, not just me, everybody here. Right now where we standing, without a high tide, just a normal tide, if we take the levee out right now and it breaks, you're looking at 6 feet of water right here.
Right here without any
Right
storm.
here, 6, 7 feet minimum.
And a lot of people lose track of that. This looks like high and dry, but it's low and dry.
Yeah, it's a bad deal, man.
Yeah, without the levee, we would survive.
No.
Yeah.
So it's important that we maintain the levees, keep them at decent heights. You know they're sinking all the time. But also, you know, to get some funding to beef up the edge of these levees on the bottom areas, pump in sand all along the levees and strengthen them up, because right now it's just a anthill sitting in the middle of a piece of property waiting for the water to
We're
come.
also
you know?
trying to get, and we continue to that, we started a marsh apron project to try and get marsh all around the levee. It helps protect the toe of the levee, and it gives more for the natural environment to produce, including alligators, if we can do that. And we're trying to do both at the same time. At South Lafourche, we've always tried to do that.
Yeah.
Marsh is good. It produces seafood, it helps our estuarine species, but marsh along a levee or a road or a chanier or a ridge helps protect those ridges from everyday wave action. They're not gonna stop a hurricane, but they will stop everyday wave action. It causes damage to those ridges. I'm Drake Baudouin. I'm the superintendent for the South Lafourche Levee District. We have 3 simple little tools that controls the water. We have pump stations, that's one of them. We have locks, that is one of our tools we use to control the water. And we also have levees to protect our community from rainwater, flood water, incoming tide. It's very simple. Here, we see the Intercoastal Canal behind me, and basically that goes from Texas all the way to Florida. With the Chapter River putting a lot of water into the system, most of the flow in the Intercoastal is from west to east. And when the floodgate is open, the water from the Intercoastal actually comes into here. The water from the further up the bayou never makes it into the southern part of the system. Here we're at the intersection of Bayou Lafourche and the Intercoastal Canal. And this is a real line of demarcation. Most of the land south of here is at risk of being lost over the next 20 years. Further north, it's a little less, but the flooding increases all the way up the bayou. How much rain do you think we got yesterday?
A little over 8 inches.
8 inches? And that's the whole area, or just Golden Meadow, or just?
We had a little bit more in the roads over here. Golden Meadow was a little bit less, but all we had 8 inches.
And that's in a 24-hour period.
Yeah, about 10 hours. Yeah.
10 hours, okay.
10-hour period.
And our pump system, you know, all the pumps moving 1.2 million gallons per minute, but that's to take out 5 inches in 24 hours.
Yeah.
But we got 8 inches in about 10 hours.
Yeah, so we'll be pumping all day today and all night too, tonight.
Yeah. And we just hope we don't get any rain this afternoon.
We'll get no more, yeah.
We had been at La Rose, at the floodgate at La Rose, again keeping water out from the Intercoastal. Now we're on the southern end of the La Rose Golden Meadow Hurricane Protection System. This is the Leon Ontario lock. What's the lock supposed to do?
Just let the traffic flow in the bayou like usual. You gotta let your shrimp boats, your work boats, everybody come in and out the bayou as they need to do for business.
And this is the connection between Fourchon and the Intercoastal Canal. The Intercoastal Canal is connected from Texas to Florida. So if you're going to ship stuff to Fourchon, you stay in the Intercoastal Canal and then come down by Lafourche.
It's gotta come up by Lafourche.
And that's how the system works.
Right.
This bayou leads to a lot of different types of things, from serious world-class oil work, serious world-class fishing, commercially, to also world-class sports fishing.
Right. A lot of commercial, a lot of recreational, and it's a good place.
Yeah, well, this bayou is between two of the most productive estuaries in the United States and actually in the world. And it's a shame we're losing it. You've seen some of the changes that have taken place.
Especially on the outside, when I was young growing up, we could cross the Leeville Bridge and you would see land on all over both sides of the road. Now you cross Leeville Bridge, ain't nothing but water. Yeah. You know, yeah. No more canals, nothing left. The erosion is just killing us over here.
If we didn't have the gate and you had 3 feet in the bayou, what would happen to Golden Meadow?
We would have 2 foot of water on the road anywhere in Golden Meadow. In the southern end, you'd have water. You'd have water in people's yards coming up to their houses. I mean, this gate stops all of that from happening.
Okay. Yeah, I've tried to do what I can and had some success at high levels, but we've had other people. Ted Falgo, over 30 years at the port, #1 facility to support deep offshore oil in the Gulf of Mexico.
In 1978, when I became the port director, it was really just a couple of facilities there. Oil and gas was starting to develop. We began to do the channel improvements necessary to accommodate, and that was our vision, was to be an energy service port. And the evolution of it, and today it's probably the largest one in the world.
This is the most economical way to do it. You get an intercoastal canal, protected waters, you go down by Lafourche protected waters, so it's a lot cheaper to move your stuff because you don't have to worry about offshore waves. You get to Fourchon and gets transferred to an ocean-going. These ocean-going boats cost a heck of a lot more money, but they supply the deep offshore drilling. Deep offshore drilling, since 1995, has averaged $6 billion has gone to the federal treasury because of this offshore drilling. $6 billion.
Early on, we understood that if we're gonna try to continue to access the coast in Lafourche Parish, we better build an elevated highway.
We have Oni Boule building the road, the critical infrastructure for that port to be successful, to the levee system that I've been involved with.
I grew up on Bayou Lafourche, and I remember this area being very, very lush with marsh as far as the eyes could see. But our community's dealing with subsidence, and due to that, we've had to build a new Leeville Bridge and work on getting other infrastructure to be more resilient. You can see the new power lines that are being invested going down to the coast to help the nation as we get hurricanes be able to get our energy production back going immediately after storms come, because it's important. Everyone in the nation is affected when we have hurricanes that close LA1 or close down the port. How you doing?
Marty, all right.
Good to see you.
I know you're in the road business.
I'm in the road business.
And are we at the end of the road?
we're at the end of our old road, and with this single road supporting at the end of the day 16% of the nation's domestic oil production and 5% of the natural gas production, this highway is
at the end of this road.
It's at the end of this road.
And part of this road is not in good shape, and we got to hurry up and get it in shape so we can have that dependability. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think areas of government are realizing how critical things are. And if we could get the rest of the project in place, they're going to be benefits not only to our community, but to this entire state, in the oil and gas, in the seafood industry, in recreational fishing, in ecotourism, and to the nation.
Just like the line in Ghostbusters, when in the mayor's office and says, "Mayor, if we're wrong, throw us in jail. But if we're right, we'll save the lives of millions of registered voters."
Yes.
A lot of people always talk about restoration, that we're going to restore the coastal Louisiana. From my experience, that was never going to happen. But what we can do is be smart about the places that we need to spend some extra time and money, and also plan for the places that we can't. At least look at those risks and deal with the ramifications of them.
I'm excited that as a state, we're looking at tripling the volume of water that comes down Bayou Lafourche. I think getting that fresh water down here is going to help our marshes. As the state follows through with the master plan and builds wetlands along the Bayou corridor, that fresh water is going to support that.
My name's Ben Malbrew. I'm the director of the Bayou Lafourche Freshwater District. We are tasked with operating the pump station here in Donaldsonville and managing and maintaining Bayou Lafourche as a conveyance channel for fresh water, not only as a drinking water source for the 4-parish region that we service, but also as a freshwater conveyance channel to provide fresh water to the estuaries, the marshes, and the wetlands on the lower end of Terrebonne and Lafourche Parish to prevent saltwater intrusion and other issues that are attacking that area. So where we're standing here is exactly where Bayou Lafourche used to naturally flow out of the Mississippi River as recent as the late 1800s and early 1900s when it was dammed off. And what you see over my shoulder is a pump station facility that was built in 1955, which pumps water from the Mississippi River over the levee into now what is the head of Bayou Lafourche to provide drinking water for over 300,000 people of this region. In 2016, we removed the flow restriction at the Union Pacific Railroad just downstream here, which will allow us to greatly increase the amount of fresh water that we're allowed to put in the bayou here, which will have positive effects not just here in Donaldsonville, but over 100 miles south, all the way down to Port Fourchon. I took Wendell Curall and Mayor Leroy Sullivan of the city of Donaldsonville on the bayou to see the improvements and the increased flow that we're able to put into Bayou Lafourche.
Now that the bayou's gotten nicer, now this land has become much more valuable.
Oh, most definitely. And as you can see along the bayou, when you go into a residential area, that people have beautified their yard and lead them to the bayou. So, and it's, just like right now, being on the water is very relaxing. And after a hard day's work, you find people, they come out and they go and they just sit out there and fish. And a lot of them really not interested in whether they catch anything or not.
Right.
It's just giving them that peace of mind.
The advantage to the town is now you're independent, completely independent on the water level in the bayou.
That's correct.
Whatever causes the water level to go up, whether it's rainfall or the pumps, now you're independent. And I tell people all the time, look, we got to work real hard. We want to keep water out of people's yards, but the main thing is keeping it out of their house. Because it's just an inconvenience when it's in your yard. When it's in your house, it's a disaster.
It's everybody working together and saying, let's do what's best for the people downstream of us that need fresh water, and also to make sure that the city of Donaldsonville doesn't flood.
To think that the whole project was done for under $5 million is really, really mind-blowing.
Well, it talks about when people know what they're doing.
doing,
It
and
talks
that's what it
about
was, yeah.
you make generals out of people that have been soldiers. Well, these generals were soldiers. These people do it. They do it all over the country. They know exactly what they're doing. That's what I look for. I look for experience.
Wasn't their first rodeo. That's
Well, look, our education's not.
The lowest bid. It's always it's also who's the most qualified contractor.
That's right.
The bottom line is, I can move stuff, get it off of the bottom, make a deeper hole that doesn't hurt too much, and put it on the surface where it can do some good. Yeah. There's knowledge out there that we're not using, and it's, we have gotten to the point that only technical knowledge is accepted. And we have a tremendous bias in that direction. And we, in government and the legal system, there's a tremendous bias for technical knowledge and experience and real knowledge on the ground and predictable knowledge is basically sometimes just ignored.
I think the good thing would be this new way of thinking would draw a lot more people.
Absolutely.
And so that's people can kick in a little bit and just be a part of something new that they can potentially work for 20, 30 years.
I tell my guys over here all the time, I say, guys, we're not going to change just to change, and we're not going to stay the same just to stay the same. You question every situation, and if the answer is stay the same, even though it's cool to do something different, stay the same. And if the answer is we got to change, I don't care how comfortable you are in doing a certain way. If it's not getting the result, change. They call it adaptive management. We have a term for that, adaptive management on the bayou. We call it common sense. I come from working people, working families, and my goal is never to look like government. My goal is to be out there, work, do things efficiently, understand that people are paying that taxpayer money. That's not just money coming from somewhere. That's coming out of people's pockets. And a lot of times, you got some very poor people. But it's critical. And again, when it comes to flood protection, when there's a flood, some rich people get poor, but they get by. But poor people have a rough time surviving.
Yeah, you talk to the shrimpers and the oystermen down here, and they spend as much time out as I do, and they will tell you, if we lose the little bit we have left, there will be no shrimping industry.
That's right.
Because the shrimp have to come in and lay the eggs.
And they have to have a marsh to help incubate those juveniles that come in with the tides.
And then you have the speckled trout and the redfish, and people make a living on all this. The crabs. It's a complete eco cycle, and without the marshlands of Louisiana and the vegetation and whatnot, it's impossible to survive.
The Midwest is the nation's breadbasket. South Louisiana is its seafood platter.
Well, all those times when you were trapping and shrimping, and what you do for recreation?
Go fishing.
Go fishing, exactly.
Go fishing. we go to the camp. We had time off. We go spend a few days at the camp fishing, or we was crawfishing, or we was catching crabs on Fouchon Beach or something. Just enjoying life.
Yeah. I liken it to my life. There's certain things I was going to do when I'm 20 years old, and people would want me to do when I was 20 years old. Now that I'm getting later on in life, I don't think it's ready to kick the bucket. I can still do some good things, but it's maximizing a useful life as you get older. And it's the same thing with coastal Louisiana. There are some places we're not going to save, but I know we can do a lot better in maximizing the benefits that they provide to us and into the future.
Vou chapeler, vou me creuser, et les fleurs qui n'en